Hey, welcome everybody. You are listening to 11 Hours Apart, a ChiLynn podcast. He's Chi and I'm Leah. And this is where we like to talk about different shows and movies that we've been watching and enjoying. This week we decided we were going to talk about the original 1988 movie Willow, in preparation for potentially watching the show. They've come out with a couple episodes of the new show Willow that is based off of this 1988 movie. And I don't know, Chi, if you've seen either episodes yet or of the new episode, but I haven't. But I just wanted to revisit the movie before delving to that show, and can't comment on the show at all because I haven't seen it yet. But the movie you wanted to watch, because I don't think I still feel, I told Chi last week off air that I think I had seen either parts or the whole movie Willow at least once in my childhood, but it was so long ago. It wasn't like a super prevalent movie for me, where it wasn't a movie that I watched a lot, or if at all. I wasn't even sure if I had ever seen it before. And now that I watched it, and I do feel like I've seen it before, but I said it wasn't like a super meaningful child movie for me or anything. So it was very interesting. Like, go back and watch it now, so many years later. And Chi, I don't think you had ever seen it before. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah, I didn't even know about this movie until I well. So the funny thing is, I knew about the new Willow, and I knew about the movie from the show.
Yeah,
Because like the trailer, I saw the trailer for the new series, and I was really interested in the show, because I think the whole setting, like the premise and like the what they had on in the trailer just really got me into it. And then I realized, oh, that was a continuation of a movie that George Lucas executively produced, and I think that he wrote the story too, in the late 80s. So that's how I came to know about the movie. I didn't even, like I said, I didn't even know about this movie existed. Let alone watching it. So yeah, this was the first time that I watched the movie.
Yeah. It was written by George Lucas, and the story was by George Lucas. It looks like the screenplay was by Bob Dolman. So Bob Dolman adapted, I guess, the story that George had written for screen, and then George Lucas executively produced it, as you said, but Ron Howard directed this.
Mm-hmm.
So this is, I think, the earliest association between George Lucas and Lucasfilm and Ron Howard. There is a link there, which is interesting. And now his daughter, Bryce Dallas Howard, been involved in some Star Wars projects more recently, and also Ron Howard got involved in Solo, the movie Solo, more recently as well. But anyways, it stars Val Kilmer, Joanne Whalley, and Warwick Davis.
Davis.
Warwick Davis. And people definitely, or I know Val Kilmer the most from Top Gun, obviously. Warwick Davis was in Star Wars as an Ewok before. I believe that was before this movie.
That was
came
before.
out.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So cool, like cool cat. I did enjoy watching the movie. It's funny to go back and watch movies like this. Obviously, the visual effects were very different, like not as sophisticated as they are now. But so there's something very charming about it. I found at the same time, not just like the story of this movie, but even the visual effects. Like there's a charm to those older visual effects that just is present in modern day, like CGI effects, and I kind of got a kick out of it. And especially like the whole time I was watching this movie, I felt like it was very clear that it was made for kids. It's definitely a kid's story. I could see myself like as a kid really getting into some like probably in deeper level than I was able to get into it an adult. But I even myself as an adult watching it now with pretty fresh eyes, even though feel like I've seen before. I really didn't remember any of it because I saw it. It was only one time, in the pen a long time ago. So I didn't really remember what happened or anything. Still found myself as an adult getting like pretty entertained and wrapped up in the story a little bit and like curious about like what was going to happen. Some of it was more predictable. There was definitely certain tropes and archetypes that were very present in this story. It's a true like fantasy tale, and it just plays on a lot of those themes that tend to be in fantasy stories. But what I think is really cool about it is that very very quality too. The Disney class movies did such a good job of capturing that. This movie kind of felt like that to me. Almost felt like a live action Disney classic movie in a sense, playing on a lot of themes that are in classic fairy tales stuff. But it was a new story. It's like that's potentially where George Lucas's genius is that he knows how to take like classic elements of storytelling, but then create like new worlds, new characters, new names for things, and just like kind of adapt those classic themes. He's not coming up with those themes from scratch, but he's putting them in kind of a new setting and a slightly different world than where we've seen them play out before. And that was cool. I enjoyed it. I got entertained by that. But it's definitely more it definitely has that childlike spirit about it too, which kind of cool to see, but you can, I like as an adult, like could really see a kid getting into this even more so than we're really able to do as an adult in a sense, because kids like they won't even notice. Well, maybe kids these days are different, but I could see like kids not even noticing like the so-called bad visual effects that were in this. Like they wouldn't even notice that because it's just like all in their imagination and they're just enveloped in the story, whereas I'm watching it with like a slightly more critical eye as an adult. So but I found it charming and entertaining, kind of unexpectedly, though, especially like the way it started out. I was like interested. I could kind of tell off the bat that it wouldn't be like just a standard fantasy fairy tale story. So I wasn't sure how if I wasn't sure if I would get bored with it eventually. Maybe there were a couple moments where I started to feel a little bit bored, but then the pace of the movie would just pick right back up again, and I was like invested. So I found myself invested. I don't know if you wanted to comment on any of that though, Chi.
Yeah, sure. But before I share my thoughts. So your audio has been like kind of laggy.
Oh no. Okay.
So, but it's kind
I'm
of weird
sorry.
because it's not that you it's not like your audio is behind the video. It's just like it gets duplicated somehow. Like
There's an
the end of a
echo.
sentence is, yeah, there's some echo thingy going on this whole time actually.
Maybe
Could it been the internet?
internet.
Are you on the 5G network?
Let me look. Oh, I'm not. I'm back. Can you hear me?
Now I can. Yeah.
Is it echo or lag?
A little bit still.
All right. I think it's the microphone. I'm sorry, listeners.
It's okay. Are you maybe like the audio is taking somehow it's taking input from the microphone and also from your computer at the same time? Could that be the case? Do you want to go to settings?
Yeah.
Audio.
Hello.
Yeah, so like the mic and speaker should be the same.
Well, but I want the mic to be this mic, and then the speaker is where I listen.
Oh, the speak. Oh, yeah. Okay. Well,
the headphones. So,
right.
but I can. Is it better now or not? Is this
Not
better?
really.
Okay.
No, not
Let
really.
me just switch it off the mic then, because it seemed to work fine when it just doing the audio through the headphones. Thanks for letting me know.
That's okay.
Okay. Can you hear me now? And is that better?
That's way better. Yeah.
Okay. Let's just go with this. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
Go on. Deep thoughts. Sorry, listeners, for that big interruption and delay, but
that's okay.
I had to get that sorted out. I know that's annoying as crap. So.
Well, it happens. Yeah, like I like the movie, but it was also like very 80s. Like you can tell that it's kind of rough in a lot of places. I think the idea is good. I like the idea, like the like how the world was and like the general direction of the story. That I found it entertaining. I enjoyed watching it. In some ways, this reminds me of like the Lord of the Ring, actually, like the whereas like the protagonist, yeah, like someone that's unassuming and on the surface not very impressive ends up like saving the day. And that just sort of reminds me of the Lord of the Ring, like the Hobbits in the Lord of the Ring, even though the Willow is just like one person, but his people sort of like it's very similar to what the Hobbits are in the Lord of the Rings, the world, right? They're just sort of like isolated from the rest of the world and just minding their own business, like very peaceful. So in a way, like they're what they call like Nelwyns.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, Nelwyns, like they in a lot of ways they're just like a more sort of less polished slightly run down version of Hobbiton. Pretty much.
Definitely inspired by
so that's interesting.
Yeah,
that's interesting, but I guess I don't know if I like the character Madden Martigan very much. Like it's not Val Kilmer's. It's just like I don't know. Like I don't really I don't know. Like maybe he's too much of a trope. Like this like
it's a sweet name.
Yeah, I like the name.
I
I like
like
the
the
name a
name.
lot. Yeah, I like the name a lot. But I think the character is too much of a, like, your typical sort of like roguish man, and like turn into a knight of some sort. I don't know. It just like it seems a little cliche. That's all. But fun,
Yeah.
interesting side note. So Val Kilmer ended up marrying the actress that plays Sorsha.
Oh, really? I didn't
Yeah,
know that.
they got married in the same in the same year. Like they got married in 1988, but got divorced like
Wow.
8 years later.
Typical Hollywood.
Yeah, very typical. Yeah, I guess. Um,
Well,
but
that's
yeah,
sweet
so
though. She was
but
very
the
beautiful actress.
she was beautiful, and she looked familiar to me, and then I realized why, because she was in uh the the Netflix Daredevil series.
Oh,
She plays
interesting.
a it's pretty much like a mother figure to Matt Murdock. She's like a sister, like
Okay.
Catholic sister. So um yeah, so like, well, that this woman looks familiar, and then I found out, oh, that's why. Even though, like, when I saw her for the first time, she was like way older. She was like an older person already,
Yeah.
but still, yeah, she's good looking. She's British, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Hmm.
Huh. Yeah, I was just
Yeah,
trying
so
to look
funny,
up other
interesting
stuff.
side note.
Yeah, that's cute.
It's pretty
That's
cute.
nice. I thought, like, yeah, there were definitely some cheesy lines in the movie, and I even noticed, like, there was one time where Val Kilmer's character, I think it was like he was supposed to be reacting to the brownies, the little
Yeah, the
guys.
brownies. Yeah.
He was supposed to be reacting to them, and his reaction was like very delayed, like, or it was it was like a second late, like, and he was supposed to be shocked, and it was like a little late. So it was definitely like some of the awkwardness in the movie, I think, can be put on the fact that they were trying to do new things with visual effects that hadn't really been done before, and they were figuring out the timing and the editing of that stuff. And so there was some weird, I noticed some like awkward moments like that, or some kind of extra cheesiness with the acting, which I think he was supposed to be a little bit cheesy because it's like a kid's
Yeah,
story.
I
It's like
think so.
stereotypical. You're right. Like he's supposed to be this stereotypical kind of character, but it's a little, he's a little over the top and all this. But I think some of it can be attributed to the fact that there was some awkwardness also with them trying to fit in these different visual effects as well. And so some of the actors' responses to things were not as smooth as what we're used to in this day and age. Which it is crazy for me to think about. This was 1988, and then I think it was 1999 or 98 or 99 when the episode 1 of The Phantom Menace came out, and thinking about how much just in that 10 years visual effects had progressed and everything. Like, and even now you go back and watch The Phantom Menace, like that's not, those visual effects like are a little dated now for sure. Um I would say like Revenge of the Sith aged pretty well in terms of visual effects, but Phantom Menace, like there's some visual effects in there where you can definitely watch it through a modern eye and be like, oh, that looks fake, like that's not very good. Um, but then comparing it back to this Willow, just thinking about how crazy advanced things got just within 10 years. So it is like kind of cool and impressive how they were doing that like movie magic with this story in Willow, even though it's like such an innocent and like kind of simple tale in a sense. They were trying out new things, I think, like with the brownies and how they shrunk them down but then merged them in with the image with the larger
Hmm.
people's like image and stuff. And
Yeah. Same with like the
yeah,
two-headed monster, like the huge monster that came
yeah,
out at the end.
yeah,
You can tell it was
yeah,
like overlaying. That was like a different thing. It was overlaid onto the like the real, like the real scenery. Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
I mean, it's not their fault, obviously, but it's just kind of like funny to yeah, just to watch them like now. Um, um, I think that the good thing is that it didn't really take away my enjoyment of the movie. Like even
Hmm.
though like I can tell it was like a really rough visual effects, but
Hmm.
it doesn't, because sometimes like some movies that actually would take away like the enjoyment. That would just
Hmm.
take you out of the movie. But
Hmm.
this one, maybe because like the whole
Yeah,
movie is really it's really like like it's like for kids, so it's not supposed to be like a super polished and serious. So like
yeah,
that adds some sort of like school theater kind of like amateur feel to it that I think is rather charming. Also, like I just love like when they have like this hounds chasing after Willow and the baby. You can tell it's like a dog wearing like monster clothes, monster suit. And
yeah.
I don't know. I thought it was adorable actually. Um,
I know. It's funny how I feel like that's, well, I guess that's also a fairy tale thing or whatever. They always make like the hounds make look, or the dogs, like they make them look kind of like pigs or kind of like some other creature. Like they never
yeah,
look
yeah.
like actual dogs.
Yeah, no, but my point was that if now if like today you want to do something like this, you would either just like build like a robot of some sort, or you just use like a CGI completely. But
Completely.
back then,
Yeah.
like they actually had, you can tell those were like a trained, like probably just German shepherds or something. They just put like a monster suit on them. Um, and
Yeah.
I just love like I said, it's just it also adds up to this like amateur sort of school theater vibe that I think it's
Yeah.
actually very yeah, it's just funny and kind of quaint in a way.
Yeah. I thought so too. And I definitely agree. Like I think that they took inspiration from like The Hobbit or the Lord of the Rings stories, which those movies hadn't come out yet, but they took inspiration from the idea of hobbits. I mean, even Willow, like he's a farmer, and he at first looks at this baby and sees this as just trouble, just like the hobbits, like they don't want adventure, they shy away from adventure, they don't want any trouble to be brought upon their town, and they're very like nervous about that. Like that was all present in this. I think it was inspired by fairy tales or like even Disney classic movies, maybe to some degree. But Grimm's fairy tales, like that sort of thing, it was inspired by that. Um, and oh man, there was like a third thing that I thought of that I feel like it was inspired by, and now I lost it. But anyways, the point is they brought together like a bunch of inspiration from different sources into this like story, and it was kind of like innocent and charming. Oh, I definitely think the evil queen was influenced by like Disney fairy tales,
Oh
portrayals
yeah,
of
yeah,
like
yeah. It
evil
was very
queen.
much like the queen in Snow White or something.
Yeah, she looks very similar. Like they did
Yeah,
a good job. She looks like she jumped right out of the animation. It is like live action. Like they
yeah.
did a good job with that queen. Um, so I thought about that, but I think that I also had a thought where how I don't know if you remember back to the Kenobi series when there's that scene where Obi-Wan is trying to sneak Princess Leia out of the Imperial base like under his jacket or whatever, and it's
Yeah,
just like
yes, yeah.
ridiculous. It
Uh-huh.
looked
Yeah.
it to us watching that show, it looked ridiculous. And it's like that there's no way that would ever work. When I was watching this movie, I thought, that sort of thing would have fit in a movie like this. Like it's almost like the silliness of it, the ridiculousness of it, like would have actually like this sort of vibe, like if the rest of the Obi-Wan Kenobi show had this sort of vibe, like you could do something like that. So I was even wondering if like maybe the creators of the Kenobi show, you know, some of them were taking inspiration from other George Lucas projects, and I mean, I don't think that there was like a direct link where they were like, oh, like this scene in Kenobi is inspired by Willow. No, no, no. I'm not trying to say that. I'm just trying to say like some of that spirit of like complete innocence, and like, or even like when Princess Leia and Kenobi is like running through the woods and the bad guys like can't catch her, even though she's like not running that fast. It's kind of similar in a sense. Like there were some scenes in Willow where he's running with the baby or whatever, and like they can't catch him even though, or the dogs like didn't catch him even though he's not going that fast. In a real world scenario, he'd probably be run down really quickly. But like, I don't know, there were just some funny like innocent moments like that I even made me think of the Kenobi show and how I think they were trying to achieve something like that in a sense in the Kenobi show, where they were hoping that the audience would just give the characters like the benefit of the doubt and just go along for the ride and just be like, you know, like go along with it, even if it is kind of ridiculous. And I don't know. I mean, we could argue if that was effective in Kenobi or not, but the point is, or the reason why I brought that up is because there is a spirit to some of George Lucas's projects and Lucasfilm's projects that do play on that, like absolute, like innocent. Like there are some ridiculous things, like even in Star Wars, like the original trilogy, like how the Ewoks fought back against the Empire just by throwing rocks at them and stuff. It's like some of it is kind of ridiculous on the surface if you're treating it like in a ultra realistic way. But at the same time, I think George Lucas does like lean into that sometimes, of that like sometimes the innocent can fight back in unexpected ways, and they can get away when you wouldn't expect it, or like, you know, these little people can achieve great things. It's just like The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings is like it's a similar concept of like just the absolute like innocence and childlike qualities of the hobbits are what kind of save them in the end, or like that allows Frodo to carry the ring as far as he does. And I'm probably like putting too much weight into it, but I think you get the point of what I'm saying. There is that spirit in some of George Lucas's projects, and it's definitely present in Willow, and it's present in certain points in Star Wars as well. So I also thought of, and I've never really, nobody get mad at me, but I've never been like a super big fan of this movie, but I thought of the movie The Princess Bride when I watched this movie Willow. I think that was the third thing I was going to say.
Oh, yeah. Yes. I can see that.
And that movie came out in 1987. So just 1 year prior. So that's weird, because I wonder if I wonder if they had been already filming Willow, and like George Lucas had already written that story prior to The Princess Bride coming out. And it just so happened you had these two movies coming out in the late 80s that had a very similar vibe about them, where it's like fairy tale, it's kind of ridiculous, the comedy is a little cheesy, but like there's still that like fantasy magical element to it at the same time. Like, I don't know, that's kind of funny. But I know people love that movie, The Princess Bride, and I think I just was too old when I saw it the first time. I was like in high school, so I never developed that like childhood attachment to that movie, but people love that movie. And I think similarly, there are people that like really liked Willow, because they just saw it when they were a kid. It holds a special place in their heart. And yeah, I just remember seeing A Princess Bride and thinking like that it was kind of cheesy and silly, you know, like I didn't really
Hmm.
get it. And Willow, I think I can actually I enjoyed Willow more than I enjoyed watching The Princess Bride for the first time. So I don't I don't want to get any of our viewers mad by
Like,
saying that. So sorry if Princess Bride is your favorite
yeah, a
movie
lot of people
ever.
swear by that movie, but I think like you,
No.
I saw the movie when I was in my like late 20s, you know, so I thought
Yeah.
it was good, but I didn't like, you know, develop like a passion for it afterwards. I think people love to quote that movie though. It's
Yeah.
like very quotable.
Right.
Um,
That's
but yeah,
true.
I agree with you. I think there's a lot of like similarities between the two movies, like in terms of the settings and like the overall vibe. Yeah, maybe that's just like the thing, you know, like that was the zeitgeist of movies in like the late 80s. Because like there was another movie, maybe it was later, but like never uh never ending story. Is that?
Oh yeah. Was that in the late 80s?
No, I think it was later, but it was also like one of
Oh,
those.
it was earlier. It was 1984.
Yeah, see, like that was like the
Yeah.
same. I would say that was like
That
that's the
was a good
same.
movie.
That's a good movie. Yeah. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I mean that one is not so much like it's not as like high fantasy as like Willow or yeah Willow because the Princess Bride is not it's not really like high fantasy at all. But I think the Never Ending Story was more. I don't remember there being like that much of like magic or you know stuff like that. But like overall,
Yeah.
like you know, the fairy tale vibe it was like a shared feature of these three movies. That's for sure. And they all
Yeah.
came out in the 80s. Maybe that's just a thing in the 80s.
I know. They had a similar vibe about them. I do like 80s movies and stuff, so I think I like some of that like innocent childlike spirit that is in some
Mm-hmm.
80s movies. You know, like we watch on I don't I'm not sure if we ever posted it, but Chi and I recorded a podcast on the Back to the Future movies, and it's like similar. It's like ultra fantastical, like fantasy, but also some ridiculousness wrapped in there, some crazy humor,
Yeah.
um, some cheesy parts, but also like just I don't know, it's good. It like reflects a different time in our cinematic history, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
and in our
Yeah.
also just
I
in
just
our
looked
history.
up like Ghostbusters, for example,
Yeah,
also in
I've
the
never
80s.
seen it.
Really?
Yeah,
Oh
really.
man. Okay.
I've never seen any of them.
I yeah,
Not a single one.
you missed out
I
big
know.
time.
Everybody loves
Big
that
time.
movie.
They're all
I
really
heard
good.
the new one was supposed to be good too, like the
Yes. I like the
second.
new one.
Yeah. Um, I just looked up that there was an animated version of Lord of the Rings. I'm not sure if you ever saw that, but it
No,
came out in
I do know them. I do know that they existed, but I never seen them.
yeah. It came out in 1978 and it was an animated Lord of the Rings. And I did watch that movie before before the live action ones came out. Like in my childhood I watched this. And so I don't know if that could have also been a influence like the how the hobbits were portrayed in that might have been an influence for Willow a little bit. But also obviously the books were out like long before that. So it's like well not that long before, but the books had been out, so I'm sure um people took inspiration from it
Mm-hmm.
and everything. But I do think it's a good demonstration of like George Lucas, he's definitely has that mind for fantasy. And like some people have said that like Star Wars really is not a sci-fi, it's a fantasy. it's actually not sci-fi. It's just a fantasy that takes place in outer space. And but George Lucas describes it as a space opera, like a soap opera drama taking place in outer space. So it's like, depends on how you want to look at it. But it is like, I think that that's actually accurate. Star Wars has a lot of classic fantasy elements in it, more so than it shares more similarities to other fantasy stories than it does to other sci-fi stories in a lot of ways. And I think, that George Lucas's fantasy storytelling was definitely being developed through things like Willow that he also was doing. And I know that George Lucas has talked in like more recent years where he's said like he's been working on like more experimental stuff and things like that. And I'm always like so curious what that is. I do feel like Willow is more, because there was probably less cooks in the kitchen for Willow. Willow is probably closer to George's writing than maybe even some of the Star Wars movies were, because in Star Wars, like, it was George, but it was also like there was these other people that were influencing that story quite significantly. And Willow is one that I think might have been a lot closer to George. George had a more central role in really like how it was written, how the story was told. Perhaps. I don't know if that's actually true. But that's interesting. It makes me think or wonder what his more recent projects that he's talked about that are more experimental, that he doesn't show anybody these projects, but I'm wondering like what they are, if they are also fantasy, or if they're just something totally different, from anything he's ever done. But sometimes I just wonder what a George Lucas, like untethered George Lucas project would look like, basically.
Yeah.
And I don't know, maybe Willow gives us a little insight into that, but it's interesting. It was good.
Maybe.
Yeah. And it did make me want to watch, it does make me want to watch the show, because after I finished the movie Willow, I went and I watched the trailer for the show, because I had seen some of the promo for the show, but I wasn't sure if I had actually seen the trailer for the show. And when you see the trailer, it does, like, obviously the visual effects are up to date. It looks a lot more like, I don't know, it looks very intriguing to me. So I do want to watch. I do want to at least start watching the show. I mean, if it's not my cup of tea, I won't continue watching it. But I think going back and watching this movie, I'm glad I did, because I think it did help me be interested in now continuing on and watching some of the show and seeing how the show is. But I do think that it looks like from the trailer, the show will be a slightly different beast from the movie for sure. Because you can't really go back and recreate that like 80s feel all the way. You just can't go back to that innocent time of like the early visual effects days or anything like that. So I think it will have a different feel, but I'm kind of curious just to see what they do with it and where they go with it.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, I think the one of the things that I'm excited about the new series is that, well, the first thing is that the visual effects can finally be up to date, because like I think in a lot of George Lucas' early work is that the visual effects it hasn't caught up to his vision yet, so he really cannot really create his vision on the screen, which is unfortunate. But you really can't blame anybody. But now with this new series, I think yeah. For example, I'm pretty sure like brownies are in the new series too, but it's just with like more up to date. It should be, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that is gonna help enhance the viewing experience of the new series. And
Yeah.
also, I also hope that Willow gets more to do, because I also think like the movie didn't really do Willow the character justice. I feel like I understand what they're trying to portray, but if you think about it, like Willow, uh, I just feel like the you know the things that Willow did in the movie could have been written better, such that, like, for example, like
Mm.
Frodo, right? You know, if you want to sort of like highlight that kind of quality, um, like somebody's kindness and like perseverance, I think Frodo, the way Frodo was written, and the things he went through is like a really good example of how to do that right. I feel like the Willow is not really up there. But obviously, like, the Lord of the Rings is like a really high
Nothing
bar to
is.
pass.
Yeah.
But because like the similarities and parallels between these two characters, you just can't help but compare.
I know. I actually thought Willow had a friend in his village that I felt like looked like he could have been Frodo. Like he had the dark curly
Yeah, I
hair,
know.
and
Like
I
the
was
the
like,
the
"Oh my
me
gosh, it's Frodo!"
Migosh. I think
Yeah,
Migosh. That's the
Migosh.
name.
Yes,
Yeah,
gee, you're right. Migosh looked like he could have played Frodo in another movie. Like they could have done a
yeah,
Sam and
maybe,
Frodo and with
maybe.
Warwick and Migosh.
Yeah,
Um,
Migosh. Yeah, Willow and Migosh. Yeah, it's just that because I think in the movie, Willow has just become, like, he wasn't even like a real sorcerer yet at the end of the movie. Even at the end of the movie, he was just like, like waking up to his like potential.
yeah.
And now, like, the series is set in, like, decades after the movie.
Hmm.
So like Willow supposedly is like a really powerful sorcerer now, and I hope that
Hmm.
we get to see him like kick some ass. um
Yeah.
I'm just curious, just curious in general, what is the role of Willow in the new series? Is he like more of a, because I think in the trailer he goes on the adventure with this all these new characters.
Yeah.
He's not just like
I know.
staying behind, like, like a Gandalf kind of character. He looks pretty involved. I don't know if that's true. It's just like or it's just the impression from the
Mm,
trailer, but it's not actually true. I don't know.
I
I'm
don't
I'm
know.
curious. Yeah, I'll check it out. I'll check out the new series for sure.
Yeah. I will say this, like one thing I really appreciate about that I found myself noticing and appreciating about the character of Willow as a hero in the movie is he is he has a family. He has kids, he has a wife who he loves and cares for. And there's a couple things about this in it. Like, first of all, so many of our heroes and stories are untethered to their family, right? Like even Frodo, like he's not
Mm.
married. He goes off on this adventure. Bilbo, who is his father like figure in his life, is already off. Like he doesn't have to worry about Bilbo too much. Like that's a good example. Luke Skywalker, his aunt and uncle die. Like he has his aunt and uncle, but then they die first thing in A New Hope. Pretty much spoiler alert. Um, so he can go off on his adventure. Harry Potter, his parents are dead. He's raised by abusive step his aunt and uncle who are kind of abusive, so he has no issue with leaving them. He has no ties to them. And I mean, part of this is because a lot of our hero characters are young and like they are younger in age, and so they haven't gotten married yet, they haven't had kids of their own yet or whatever. But Willow is actually portrayed as he already has a family, which is very interesting because I think I heard in one of the promos that Warwick Davis was actually only like 17 years old or something when he starred in that movie. Like he was very young.
Oh,
So
wow.
it's kind of crazy that they actually did have him with a wife and kids because he's supposed to be only 17, or in real life he's only 17 years old. Um but he they portrayed him as almost like more like a middle-aged man, like going off on this adventure. And he has this family, and so that I kind of like that he still went on his adventure, even though it's not like his life was over when he had got married and had kids. Like, yes, he was comfortable in his home and happy with his family, and he loves his family. It's not that he was trying to escape from them or that they were holding him back. Like, they actually, this is the other thing I like about it. It was actually because of his kids and his wife that he goes on the adventure in the first place, because he didn't want to have anything to do with the baby when she washed up on the shore. He wanted to send her floating down the river or whatever, and it was her kids that pulled her out, his kids that pulled her out and wanted, like, they fell in love with her, and then his wife fell in love with the baby, and it was like through their attachment that he ended up getting also attached to this baby. And it was kind of like through their graciousness and care and nurturing qualities that Warwick starts to also see like the positive sides of this baby. Then he gets attached, and then through him, eventually down the line, Mortigan, or however you say his name, he gets attached to
Matt Martigan, yeah.
Matt Mardigan, he also gets attached to this baby. So it's kind of how this baby like touches the lives of everybody, even though it's just an innocent little baby. But it's also like, I did notice how Willow's like family is kind of what first brought this adventure to the baby itself is the adventure, and then they were the ones that plucked the baby out of the river. It wasn't Willow's initial choice. You know, he does the classic hero's journey thing. He refuses the call to adventure at first, but then it's because of his family that he ends up, you know, also getting attached to this child that ends up sending him on this adventure. So I thought that was kind of cool and a little bit different, and it's a cool way to show that, like, you know, you don't have to be unattached to your family in order to like go on an amazing adventure and things like that. I mean, that's like, I'm pulling things out of there, but you know what I'm saying. Like, it was cool to see a character that had that. And then when he comes home at the end of the day, or at the end of the movie, and he like runs to his wife, it was like very sweet and endearing, and I liked that. I don't know, it was like, you know, he was happy that he did what he did, but he also like got to go home and was reunited with the people he loves, and knowing that he achieved his mission, I guess. So, but I understand also, Chi, what you're saying, where it's like there maybe could have been some better writing or an even more profound role that Willow could have played, or there's just more room there for him to grow into this sorcerer that he wants to be. So hopefully we will get to see that in the series. You know?
Yeah. Perhaps, yeah.
Yeah. Anything else you could think of you want to say?
No, I think that's pretty much it. Yeah.
Okay.
Good movie though.
Yeah. Yeah, very enjoyable. Yeah, we've also been I just finally finished. I had taken forever to get to the last 2 episodes, but I just finally finished the Andor series, and Chi's in the middle of it right now. So that might be something that we talk about in future weeks. What else is coming down the pipeline? I might be able to, after December 9th, watch Decision to Leave, which is a Korean film that comes available in the US. So that's another thing on the radar. I don't know if I have anything else I'm planning on watching soon. How about you? Anything?
Yeah, well, I just watched this movie, The Menu.
The
Have you heard of it?
Menu?
The Menu.
No.
Oh, it's
Mm-mm.
there yeah, it stars like Nicholas Hoult, Ralph
Oh, I know him.
Fiennes. Yeah, Ralph Fiennes, and your favorite actress, Anya Taylor-Joy.
Oh. Oh, maybe
It's
I did see the trailer for this
yeah,
or something.
it was a interesting it was an interesting movie. I like it. Um it was in the same along the same vein as like the Lobster, that sort of thing.
Oh.
Yeah, it was like a really weird story, but uh made as a commentary to something. So I like that. I like that movie. Um, there's a movie called Amsterdam. It was in the
Oh
theaters
yeah.
like a while ago, but I think
Yeah.
it's well, at least here it's gonna be on Disney Plus soonish, I think. So I might check that out.
Okay.
What else? I think that's pretty much it. Well, that is just that's the newer things.
The
I still
things.
have like a pile of like TV shows that I need to catch up on. For example, like The
Me too.
Crown.
I know.
I
Me
need to
too.
finish Andor. Um,
I feel like.
The Reservation Dog season 2.
Oh, I never watched season 1 of that.
It's a
I
good show
haven't
too.
watched.
It was
Yeah.
a really good show. Actually,
Okay.
yeah, it was worth watching.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
But
Yep.
yeah, so a lot of stuff already, just to you know to go through.
Yep. Okay. Well, I just wanted to ask real fast, like what
Hmm.
was on your radar. So,
Yep, these are what's on my
cool.
radar.
Well, I guess that just about wraps us up for this conversation, though. And I know that it's getting to be holiday time here in the US of A. So I, I know I have some plans going on. So I'm not sure when the next time we'll be able to stream or record one of these podcasts will be. But if not before Christmas, happy holidays and Merry Christmas to everybody. Um, and yeah, enjoy watching some good shows and movies and reading some good books and everything else over the holidays to everyone out there,
I
all of our
echo that
many
sentiment.
listeners.
Yeah, that's right. I echo that sentiment. I mean, yeah, holidays. It's coming up, and it's a good time to catch up on, some good TV shows and books that you might have been putting off because of other stuff.
Yep,
So yeah,
exactly.
everyone have a good Christmas holiday. Happy New Year. If we don't get to see you guys before then, yeah,
All righty.
cool.
Signing off.
Signing off.
He's Chi and I'm Leah. Thanks for listening to 11 Hours Apart, a ChiLynn podcast. Bye.
See you guys.